We're making a 2D character in a 3D environment.
This is bigger than all of us. We could work it a little bit.
We were originally going to do it stop motion. Do you guys want to die? Like, have you learned nothing?
Turns out Youp was animating the whole thing at 60 frames a second. So that's like, I think 2.5 times the amount of work.
Why is it taking so long to animate this one word? It was the funniest thing, but I did want to shoot myself.
I've just really appreciated that Blender's made so well in such a way that I can actually rely on the program.
Greasepencil is getting so good. We actually don't have any post-process. It comes out of Blender and it's done.
Hey guys.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good, you?
I'm good, thank you. And it's really nice to meet you. What are you doing on this Sunday?
We were just chatting away and preparing to spend some time talking to you.
All right.
My name is Youp Zondag. I was originally born in the Netherlands, moved to Canada around 2004.
And I'm Nick Alberelli. I grew up in Canada and I went to film school with you.
My main background in the very beginning, before I hopped over into the more VFX-y Blender world, was just frame by frame hand-drawn animation and stop motion. I was making a 20-minute stop motion film, and it was quite ambitious. And that's actually how I met Nick, because Nick kind of like helped me with the technical side of like actually making the thing and making it look good.
And yeah, so we made a stop motion film together. And he was all on the like puppets and animation side, and I focused on like the teching and lighting of it and just cinematography and actually getting the thing done.
3 years later, we're still making stuff together.
Our partnership's always been about, filmmaking first, and then the rest of it all comes from our want to like see our scripts realized.
The project that you guys worked on, was it kind of you were just put with another person, or did you know that Nick's skill set was that? And how did you?
Youp actually just decided to make the film by himself.
Okay. And then what came across some issues and.
Well, here's the thing. I had all the puppets designed. I had the script. I had the sets, and I was like, "Oh boy, I get to start in a week." And then Nick came to me in like the hall. I was like, "Hey, Youp, how are you doing the camera text?" Like, "Oh, I have this. I this." He's like, "That's not going to work."
Well, you're not going to hog the spotlight anymore.
Yeah, like that's kind of where the collaboration started, and now we're like Nick's also a lot more into the art, and I'm more getting into the tech. So we're kind of teaching each other constantly. So that's also very important of our partnership, is that like we're constantly teaching each other and pushing each other to try out different things. I'm constantly being asked to try different things in my comfort zone, like using Blender, for example. That gave me heartburn in the beginning, jumping over from Toon Boom to Blender.
You work on your own a lot, and you sort of not keep everybody away. It's kind of your thing, and it's sometimes difficult to sort of put your head up and go, can you help me out with this? Because you kind of just get carried away and just get stuck into it on your own as an artist.
And once you have a process, it's hard to change.
Today we're pretty much talking about your animated web series made in Blender with greasepencil. How did it come about? The inspiration for Blown Apart? That would be great to hear.
This is the story of Napoleon.
I love history. Nick likes history for like because the connection with modern politics and past, like it's all kind of the same, right? At the end of the day. And we were talking and we were thinking, oh, Caesar, this or that. But Napoleon is by far the historical character that has the most stuff around him. Like he's just an endlessly fascinating character. And we were originally going to do it stop motion. But our producer on the stop motion was like, "Do you guys want to die? Like, have you learned nothing?" So we then, as we were working and developing on the idea, I was experimenting in Toon Boom. And I love Toon Boom, but there's a problem with Toon Boom is that it costs money. It costs money to have the Toon Boom license. And then Nick had to get it, and I was not going to be a student anymore. So the price is going to be jacked up.
Guess we have to cut some costs, right, Talleyrand?
Yes, I am.
And then Nick walked in, very confidently and said, "We're using Blender now."
And there it is. Financial stability is restored to the nation.
Basically, the idea is to do like a sitcom about Napoleon. And it was the other reason we picked Napoleon was because there's very little media about Napoleon, really. So he's probably one of the biggest figures that has the least. Well, now there's actually the Ridley Scott film coming out, which we reference in a video. So switching to Blender, the reason why was essentially we looked at Harmony, and Harmony both had two problems. It was one, expensive, but two, it also wasn't a great platform to grow on top of. So then we looked at Blender, and I learned Python for Blender. And we basically recreated the most basic version of the rigging system that we had looked at in Harmony, and we made it in Blender. So we wanted to do a cutout system, or just one character, and you kind of spun around. And we first figured out how to draw the character in greasepencil. Once Youp had the character designed and laid out, we figured out a way to start flipping all of the parts of the character around, and that was a very manual process. And then I started scripting. I learned how to script in add-ons, and then we started with a more primitive character rig that has like some buttons that would just flip him around, and he was all FK. And we now have a pretty fancy rig where it switches from FK to IK. There's always one or two things with greasepencil that aren't perfect, but it's a great tool still, and it's being developed further. We enjoyed embracing the limitations of greasepencil, because it forced our art style to go into a certain direction. And I kind of almost think that now with Unreal Engine, you can kind of just make anything and it would look just as amazing as it should. So there's something really interesting, I think, about embracing the limitations of something still. It makes something look weird.
What was a big shock for me is that like from Harmony or like traditional animation, like Flash or anything, it's a flat plane. But like now that we're in Blender, you're making a 2D. You're making a 2D character in a 3D environment. So how I eventually wrapped my head around it, in the old Popeye cartoons, they would sculpt a background from clay and paint or whatever, and they put a piece of glass with Popeye in front of it. And then they'd film the glass with Popeye, and then you see the set behind it. Bonaparte's kind of similar. Like we made a set in 3D, and we just put the 2D characters in front of the camera.
If you're going to make something about Napoleon and there's supposed to be eventually a sense of scale, we wanted to build something where we had a 3D camera where we could move around. And the backgrounds was basically, if we go with 3D backgrounds, if you can art direct 3D backgrounds and I can model them, we could get something that, and I think it paid off, because then we get more angles.
Well, it paid off too, because I'm not killing myself making backgrounds on top of everything else, so I'm happy.
That's good. It's about keeping the team happy and not killing them. So that tool that you created, Nick, was that something that you were sort of developing prior to creating an episode, or was it like as you went on, you was like, this is an issue, how can we make it more efficient?
We developed that first because there wasn't really another way to make the show, to have the amount of things that are on Napoleon, if I could think. 14 poses for his body. There's 14 bodies and heads, and then he has like 50 or 60 Youp mouths.
He has 60 mouths and
and then
45 hands.
Yeah, and like 45 hands. Blender didn't have another way to handle that, so it was almost like a necessity. And we just came from stop motion, so you can almost imagine that like we're traumatized so hard from the slowness of stop motion that any inefficiency is like not acceptable to us, and we have to speed it up. And the other thing is that we do everything in our spare time. We did make one version of it, and then that stayed for a long time as the add-on. And Youp didn't love it, but it worked. And then it was actually when Youp started teaching me to animate that I
you understood like what's the requirement. And
then I was okay, this is the worst. Actually, I hate it. I learned to code just so that we could make our first episode and have the character do something and have him spin around and do animation tests. Once we were at that point, it was like, okay, we have the bare minimum. Like we have one character who can move, who can spin, and Youp can animate him. We can make 1 or 2 3D backgrounds, and then we made our first like piloty. What would you call that? I don't want to bring too much attention to that episode. Secret episode we don't talk about.
That episode was just, is Napoleon funny?
I conquered the continent. What have you done? You played a guy who a computer. Whatever. You.
Like, can we watch it and not like want to exit immediately? But we of course found like stuff that could always be improved, but that's with every episode. But I do want to brag because of Nick's pipeline that the one episode I believe it's called Napoleon and his hand thing is when he
puts his hand in the
and when he argues with one of his marshals, like who's allowed to do it. That episode took a week to produce from from animation to design, everything.
That was when we got IKs the first time.
That's true. That's when we got IKs, and I was like, oh my god, Nick, I can bend him this way, and it's so quick now.
And it's funny that episode actually also has no 3D backgrounds. So we made that in 3D space, but because you conceived that episode as flat, you had enough time that you could draw the backgrounds, and we just drew them, and you just went with it.
It's a real big luxury for animators, especially coming from frame by frame and stop motion, to have like a file set up, and you could just work and just think about the creativity and not be bogged down by the technicalities. Of course, we have to think about the technicalities when something's wrong. Like I'm like, Nick, so this is not working. And we spend like an hour on Zoom trying to figure it out, what the problem is. But it's been going really well, especially in the last couple of episodes. Because we keep getting better and improving the process and
more add-ons.
Catching all the bugs. Really.
I have an add-on that will, like, you can click a button and it'll just check the file for me. Like, is the collaboration settings set? Have you set relative file paths? All these little things in Blender to pack as images.
Automatically pack into the Blender scene and make sure that's all on and things. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just have, instead of having him do those 3 or 4 actions individually, I just have a button. So it's just like slap button. And it just does check. It's ready to go.
I was just curious to why I wonder why they're not sort of, designing it in Photoshop and then rigging it in Blender just for like the animation side. But then we found that you guys, use grease pencil for the line art.
It matches better. See, the line art looks the same, right? But also deformations and such. It's a little bit harder to get the deformations to look nice with Photoshop.
Grease pencil is getting so good because it's getting better and better that I hope that one day it gets so good that I can just abandon all other softwares and have just one software to rule them all. Like just kind of just live in there. Like in the beginning when we were working in grease pencil 2 years ago, I'm like, I can't do a Disney style or Looney Tunes style cartoon yet. But now 3 years later, I'm like, I definitely can.
This way we don't have to composite anything. Like out of camera, we get exactly it's what you see is what you get, and we know what it will look like. And there's a bit of dynamicism that's just sort of automatically added in the same way you would get when you just point a camera at someone next to the sun. You get like those happy accidents. And that's sort of why we like grease pencils. Then we can just, once you throw the lighting on and you just make things happen, it's like, there was a light there. Turns out that it's kind of hitting them a bit. It looks nice.
Nice.
Leave it.
We actually don't have any post-process. We don't edit. We don't do any, like Nick said, any compositing. It comes out of Blender and it's done.
Tiny Media, how did that come about?
And so we moved in together at first to do this stop motion film. So we lived together and did the stop motion film. Well, first in an attic. That's where the stop motion film was essentially done, or like just above a garage. And then we moved in together into a house. And then we were working in the basement, and that was our office for a long time.
Yeah, an incomplete basement, if I might add.
Yeah, exactly. It was an incomplete basement.
It was like a dungy, dark.
Did it have windows?
There's
no windows.
There's a window.
What? This is it? Jesus, we need funding.
And that's where most Napoleon stuff happened. And where the first batch of episodes, we made them sitting right next to each other in that office. Yeah, it's really fun. And yeah, Tiny Media is just we hope to make some other projects as well. We have a couple other ideas. But Napoleon right now is our baby. It's tiny. It's tiny because we're tiny.
Yeah.
It's just
tiny team, no budget. We work exclusively, not exclusively, but we work with our friends who like Michael, who does the music. He went to university with us. Johnny, who does the voice of Napoleon in Talleyrand, he went to high school with you.
Yeah, high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and my high school buddy also did the voice. So it's like we're working with our friends who also love art and just making stuff. And
that's great.
Yeah, basically we create this collaboration almost like.
I didn't know that it was just 2 people making this show, because the production value, the audio, everything about it was just so polished. Yeah,
wow,
props to you guys. Honest, we'll be watching. We're going to subscribe. Well, I think we already have for the next episode.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Coming out. And the last one was 2 months ago, I think.
Yeah, the timing's changed because we had a couple new things just be posted recently that are these Napoleon does TikTok videos. And it's a really funny process because if you saw them, he may have noticed there's something weird about him.
No.
Like that he has a green outline on his body.
Right.
So we've gone through the work of shooting it in Blender on a janky green screen that has changes.
So it feels that TikTok gets that TikTok vibe.
It's mainly to have content on the channel because the episodes I don't want to spoil too much about the next episode, but the episodes are scaling up.
Oh, brilliant.
And usually when we develop something, we just need some time to get it figured out. And once we have it figured out, we're pumping them out again.
Nice.
But the next episode, it's outside.
Okay.
We see Paris. So it's no longer in a closet, or not a closet, but like an office, you know what I mean? So so we're constantly scaling up because we want to see these characters be in other places.
Yeah.
Our ultimate goal, though, is to finally show Napoleon on a battlefield.
Typical length and time to make an episode. I know you guys work in your own time.
In our golden age, when we were pumping them out when we were living together, or now?
I'll
I
say
guess
now.
then and now. What was it like then and what's it like now?
We used to do, and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, monthly. We would
really.
pump them out monthly. Now we take 2 months. But 2 months, but now we're pushing it more because, like I said, we're adding buildings and stuff. But we're making now shorts. So Nick set up a file system where we can just make shorts quickly.
Yeah.
So we're producing more stuff, but as the episodes get more elaborate, we're taking our time with them because we want to be good. We want them to be good, right?
We're always playing this game of simultaneously making things and then making add-ons to make it happen faster. Now that I made the add-on, it has helped make the shorts faster. And it's the same thing with the episodes because we have the rigging add-on and the sequencer add-on. It's just a lot of stuff.
What about the lip sync stuff? Do you what's the process for that? Is that just swapping out mouth shapes?
In the beginning, we tried out Rhubarb lip sync, but because Johnny, our actor, talks so fast,
Petty, Ludwig. That's real petty.
the lip sync is going and it doesn't match. So now I just listen to it and I lip sync. I just find it's the correct mouth shapes. Usually it's animated on 2s, and I've gotten so good now that I can just listen to it, take once, and lip sync as I'm going through it. Yeah, I don't have to test it. Yeah. And there's a reason why I got so good. I think, Nick, you're the best at explaining that story.
Yeah. So Rhubarb lip sync, it's an AI tool that we've used in the past that takes like a WAV file and gives you some basic lip syncs. We still do use it sometimes, but not for the reason you'd think. It's more like I sometimes throw that on there just to make the characters look like they're talking. Kind of tricks my brain into believing that the episode's happening. And sometimes it's just helpful to have the beats, even if the shapes are completely off. For some pieces, it'll be great. And I think we might use it for background people.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Just for the,
it's a great tool. Yeah, but it's not perfect, especially with how quickly our voice actors talk.
It's the actor's fault. It's only actor's fault. It's not the Rhubarb. It's him.
Okay,
so you're quicker now. You're quicker than Rhubarb tool.
Yeah.
Well, after this happened, so it was taking like I think a week or two to just get the lip sync done. I was like, what's going on? He's a lazy guy. And that's always what tech people say. These animators, they're so lazy. Turns out Youp was animating the whole thing at 60 frames a second. So that's like I think 2.5 times the amount of work.
And I'm so focused. I'm like, why is it taking so long to animate this one word?
And when we were writing at 24, so you wouldn't notice.
I did all the work, and at the end it's 24, and I lost all the frames.
Oh man,
it was the funniest thing, but I did want to shoot myself.
Yeah, I bet.
Lip syncing at 60 frames.
But it also showed us how quickly things can go off the rails in the sense that if you don't have everything set up properly and there is some sort of slight mistake, you could be paying for that for a very long time. Especially on, Youp will be paying for that for a very long time.
Is that when, obviously, when you spoke about earlier, Nick, of you like sort of having those tools and checks the file, check it's at the right frame rate?
Yes, it's all from that experience.
And that's the thing that I think I've learned most with this process of working with Nick, because I would animate something, right? Like work on it for hours, and then it would just, for some reason, or it would break. And then literally Nick becomes God in my eyes. Like, please fix the animation. I don't want to do it again. And he always manages to fix it somehow. But yeah, we had something very new, like for me, right? I guess it happens with 3D animators more, but if you're frame by frame, like where I come from, what you do is the final result. So now that there's like a step in where one tiny thing can nudge his head to the left more. So now his body's not connected. It freaked me out in the beginning. Now I trust the process a lot more.
What I loved about Blender was that I could actually check everything because it's open source.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, and I did, I learned everything about it. And now I can diagnose down to the T of whatever the problem that we're trying to solve is, because our process is so unique to how we work. I've just really appreciated that Blender's made so well in such a way that when I fix something, it's actually fixed, and that I can actually rely on the program to not be just whatever doing nonsense things or randomly closing or doing whatever it wants to do. Yeah. Definitely. So that was the real thing.
Nick, is that by any chance a Yeti?
Yes. I'm sorry I'm drinking too much, but yes, I love Yetis. I actually have a fleet of them.
I've been obsessed. Absolutely obsessed with the brand and the quality and how cold it keeps everything.
Me too. When we were working side by side, we had a desk set up. We were side by side.
Yeah,
and Nick would look at me and be like, "I pity you with your cold coffee." He was just. I had to switch over too. I was like, "Okay."
Have you switched to Yeti as well? You?
Yeah, yes, Yeti.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Not here. But, I got one the moment Nick got one, because I'm like, okay, I forget about my coffee because I'm working, right? So.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It's good. It's really good for workaholics, because after 3 hours, your coffee's still burning hot.
Yes,
and you were too busy working.
What about inspirations for the 2D animation and I guess art style?
For me, the two things that the two big reference points, or three now, is like the Bob's Burgers movie, the Simpsons movie, and Futurama having these. Those are some of the touchstones for me on the 3D backgrounds, and doing the line art and basically having 3D objects having these 2D outlines, make them look like they're flat drawings.
Lately, I've paid more attention to the 3D stuff, like, because every time there's a shot, we would watch a movie and they'd be like, "That's a 3D shot. That's a 3D shot. That's a 3D shot." And then I would then be like, "Oh, now I'm looking forward to." So I've really grown to appreciate, especially the Bob's Burgers movies. They've done some amazing work there. In terms of like the style, I guess, you can just think of like, Rick and Morty. We did want it to be a clear, like, adult animation comedy style. So it's like very minimalistic, big eyes, not too much Ren and Stimpy squashing and stretching, even though we want to do that in the future, because Blender tools are just getting better and better and better. And who knows, we might be able to do a frame by frame in record time. But Final Space.
Final Space. Yeah.
When I saw Final Space on Netflix, I called Nick up, was I living with you at the time? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think we were. I don't remember.
Called him from another room. Nick, you've got to come in here now. You've got to watch this.
You know what? You laugh. That's actually probably it.
Yeah. No, but when we saw Final Space, we were like, let's try and go for that quality. Like we always try to go for like, okay, what quality are we achieving here? When are we going overboard? When are we not going overboard? And what is acceptable for a YouTube web series?
There's an episode of Adventure Time, which is one of my favorite ones, by one of my favorite animators, David O'Reilly. Glitch is a Glitch, the 3D version of Adventure Time.
I haven't seen the 3D version of it, no.
It's so great. It's done. I think he uses Maya, and it retains the 2D like style at times, but kind of keeps within the rules of the Adventure Time rulebook. Have you ever considered doing a 3D version like David O'Reilly did for a special episode? Or you could do a stop motion one, because you've got stop motion.
No, never again. I cannot.
You'll die.
8 hours a day in a room moving a puppet, and if something goes wrong, like the wood expands because it's warm and your shot's out of frame, to start all over again. No, never again.
Come on, man. Everyone's doing it.
No, they're not.
Nick and I were talking this week about wouldn't it be great if we just made a whole show in 3D? Because 2D is great. I love working in 2D, but now that we've gotten so used to 3D and we're getting better and better at modeling, we're seeing new opportunities for different shows that look different than Blown Apart. Because Nick and I both agree we don't want to ever make something that looks the same as a previous project. Like, we would never make another show that looks like Blown Apart, because we've been there, done that, right? Like, what's interesting about that? Yeah.
Well, we're working on another project that is in 3D, and it's like a space comedies type thing. We're hoping to do like an art style that's sort of inspired by stop motion, so it'll have a bit of a stop motioning feel to it. And we're also experimenting with doing some motion capture and stuff like that to do the animation. So it's really about experimenting with the quickest sort of techniques, so like that we can again make things really, really fast. It'll be similar to Blown Apart in the sense that it has some very basic animation styles, and it'll be about someone who has a massive ego.
Oh my goodness! I'm turning this microphone into a block of gold.
One question that I really wanted to ask about you guys working full time, and then you work on these on an evening. How do you give advice for like resting?
That's a very, I think, important question because so it's like a weird toxic relationship between the stuff you should be doing. You should be working. There was a point I felt guilty for relaxing. The best advice I can give based on what I've learned is instead of jumping into the pool, into a project because you're passionate, spend a little bit of time figuring out how is the best way to do this. And that's what I really learned with Nick, because I was always very excited, like, oh, I want to make this, and then just start. And then before I know it, I lost all my hair. So trust me. So like, I used to have hair before stop motion.
That's what every stop motion artist animator says.
It's actually true.
It's true. It's true. It's true that like, and I'll just say like, I bled for my art before, and I don't regret it. But now that I'm like 28. And I know I have other responsibilities. Okay, how can I do my art responsibly? And I guess by working with Nick, just setting up the file properly, scaling the project to what you can realistically do. Right now, I balance out my hours. Okay, I work 2 hours a day. If I don't work 2 hours a day, I move it to the next day. If you keep working and working, you actually not only lose sight of your health, but you lose sight of the end result.
To take a cynical approach, artists always don't like the things they make anyway, so why spend so much time on it? By the time you're done, you're gonna hate it anyway. Like in the sense that you're always looking towards the next thing to make something better. So there is a level of just accept that this thing's gonna be good at what it's good at, and it won't be good at what it's good at. Like, and then you can just make the next thing. And there's never been a piece of art that I made that I was like, okay, now I'm happy with that, and like I've become satisfied.
It's so important, and it's something that we like to talk about and touch on briefly with these talking to people in the industry. Like,
I appreciate that. That's a good topic. Yeah.
People really do need to look after themselves mentally, physically. Thanks for your advice on that, because it's something that we like to mention. So
yeah, and it's something I'm like, for example, like Youp's doing better at it than I am. Like I still struggle with that as a problem. Like I think even last night I was committing some commits up to the GitHub for the sequencer add-on at like 10:30 last night. It's not good. I would say leave your house.
Yeah, go for a walk. And
once I'm in the space, if you're in the space where you do the work, you won't stop the work.
Yeah. And
it's physically leaving that is the first step to, because this way you don't have to switch your mind. You switch your body and your mind will follow. Like, oh, there's the wind. Like I have to think about that now. Like I'm cold. Well,
the wind.
Well, here it's winter, so immediately I'm not thinking about my work. I'm thinking about I'm freezing, and I should have worn a jacket.
Youp, Nick, have a lovely Sunday evening. I just want to say thank you. It's been amazing to meet you guys, to talk to you guys. Thanks for your time. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye. All the best.
Bye,
guys.
And now you know the blown apart secret formula: blenders and greasy pencils. So smash that subscribe button to stay tuned for more cartoons of the world's most lovable dictator.